This is an in-depth tutorial on how to stream from Optitrack Motive 2.3 to Unreal Engine 5.6. This video is going to be in 4 chapters. In chapter 1, we're going to be looking into the Motive side of things, how we can get it ready for streaming. Then we're going to look into the plugins and what's needed on the Unreal Engine side to get that data into Unreal Engine. Then in the second chapter, I'm going to show you how to get that skeletal animation data into a skeleton in Unreal Engine 5. We're going to show you a skeleton in an A pose and a skeleton in a T pose. In chapter 3, I'm going to show you the retargeting methods, such as the one for the Metahuman. And this is going to be the same to retarget this animation data on whatever rig you want. Chapter 4 is going to be the face animation with live link face. And at the end, there's a bonus chapter on how to capture the stream data using the take recorder. I have a skeleton with active fingers, and I have a video on how to create your own hand markers with passive trackers and on how to set up your studio in a way to capture them. Alright, let's start with chapter 1. First thing you're going to do is go to the streaming tab on the top. And if you're new to Motive, I know this list could be intimidating, but there's only really 5 things you really need to worry about. First thing is going to be the slider up top that says broadcast frame data. This essentially turns on and off the data streaming, so you're going to make sure that's on. The second is going to be your local interface. This determines where that data is sent to. If you have Unreal Engine 5 and Motive on the same computer, you're going to set it to loopback. And if you're just starting out, I would advise you to have Unreal Engine and Motive on the same computer. But as you get more advanced, I would advise you to have them on different computers. If you are streaming over the network, you will choose the IP address that you know both computers can talk to each other. It is common to run into a lot of issues when you're streaming over the network, so if you're also having trouble, don't be discouraged. I have a video going exactly into that and detailing the common issues and how you can troubleshoot. But for the intents of this tutorial, I would advise you to stick to loopback. Number 3 is going to be your skeleton coordinates. If you're streaming to Unreal Engine, set them to local. Number 4 is going to be your bone naming convention. Now, I am on Optitrack Motive 2.3. For my version, there is no Unreal Engine bone naming convention, so I'm using FBX. This is universal, so even if you're on a different Motive version, this will work for you as well. So I'm going to select FBX. And I'm going to go more into the bone naming conventions and skeleton coordinates further down the video. And finally, my transmission type is unicast. The default in Unreal Engine is multicast, and if you need to transmit the data to multiple clients, you have to use multicast. But I noticed in my experience that you will run into much more network issues when you're using multicast. And there is one more nuance when it comes to the IP addresses when you're using multicast. Unlike unicast, when you are defining your local interface, you just choose loopback and that is it. But for multicast, you have to go to advanced settings and configure your multicast interface. But we don't need to worry about that. So I'm selecting unicast. On Unreal Engine side, if you know you're going to be retargeting to a Metahuman, make sure Metahuman core data is enabled. I'm going to go ahead and create a default project. And as far as plugins go, make sure Live Link is enabled. And then search up Optitrack. If you don't see it show up, don't worry, installation is super simple. Just go to the link in the description. And you're going to download the Unreal Engine 5 plugin. Just open the zip file. There's instructions here as well. But all you need to do is locate where your engine is installed. It's usually under Program Files, Epic Games, Engine Version, Engine, and Plugins. And you can drag it in. Or optionally, you can put the plugin into the project folder as well. You just need to create a folder called plugin. This is just for you to know. You don't actually have to do it for the scope of this tutorial. Okay, now go ahead and launch Unreal Engine again and search up Optitrack one more time and enable the plugin and restart Unreal. Now you're going to go under Window, Virtual Production, Live Link. You're going to choose Optitrack Source. Turn off Connect Automatically, and that 127.0.1 is that loopback address. You're going to select Unicast and hit Create. You can see the subject is operating normally. If you're getting the yellow marker, just make sure data is playing. And if you're playing the data and if you're still getting the yellow marker, then it's a connectivity issue between Unreal Engine and LiveLink. That could be the firewall. If that doesn't work, then you have to reference my video on network issues, which is linked below. Last step is going to be turning off that animate Y forward. I'm going to tell you the reason for that in a minute. Now, to finish off this chapter, you're going to search up Opti in the Place Actors section, drag it into the scene, and just like that, we can see that beautiful data from Optitrack right here in Unreal Engine. Now, if at any point Unreal crashes or you have to restart it, you're going to see that your connection with Motive is broken. So you're going to go to the LiveLink tab, Optitrack source, turn off connect automatically, choose unicast and hit create, and turn off animate Y forward. Now, you might think this is a great time to create a preset, but I have to warn you, Unreal Engine is very crashy when it comes to loading the presets that you have saved. Okay, let's go back to our Optitrack LiveLink display. Even though it's cool to see the data right in front of us, you see the little transforms and the little markers, we can't really do anything with it yet. For us to put it on something we want, we have to first map this data onto a skeleton. You have two options. You can either use the skeleton Motive provides. I'm going to show you that later. But if you're going to put it on a Metahuman, same as me, you have to use a skeleton that's in an A pose. I'm giving you my files. You can just go to the link in the description and just download these three. There's going to be an FBX file, an iCarig, and a retarget. Go to Unreal Engine, create a folder, and hit import, and import that FBX. As far as your import settings, I want you to go to this menu up top on the right and turn on Force Front X-axis. To get a good retargeting result for a Metahuman, you need a skeleton that is looking at the X-axis. I'm going to tell you more about these later as well. If you have an engine file with a lot of models, I noticed that this skeleton slot gets populated automatically, and sometimes even this import only animations also gets ticked on. So make sure that slot is empty and import only animations is off. For the rest of the settings, it's pretty much default. I like to turn off import materials and import textures off, but there isn't anything else special. I'm gonna hit import. From our import, we get these three files. First one is this physics asset. We don't really need to worry about that. The other ones is the skeleton and the skeletal mesh. This skeleton is what we are going to create an animation blueprint from. And the skeleton mesh is what we're going to have move in a second. And you can see that skeleton is actually being plugged in to that skeletal mesh. I'm going to drag in my skeletal mesh into the scene. And I'm going to right click, animation blueprint, and I'm choosing that OptiScale skeleton we just imported. I'm hitting create. I'm going to name it ABP underscore LiveLink. As you might have guessed, this blueprint's function is to take that LiveLink data and just put it on the skeleton. I'm going to search up LiveLink pose and select my subject name from the drop-down list and connect it to the result. I'm going to compile and save. And you can already see it moving in the little preview. Now, to get this skeleton in our scene moving, we are going to use this animation blueprint. So just click on it in the scene and scroll down. You're going to choose ABP underscore LiveLink. And you see it snapped to that pose that it was in taking. For it to constantly update, I'm going to search LiveLink skeleton animation and add it. And just like that, we went from just seeing a preview from the animation data to actually seeing it on a skeleton. And we can do whatever we want with the skeleton now. Before we move forward with the tutorial, you don't need to follow this section, I want to show you how to get the Motive avatars moving as well. So what you're going to do is search up Opti in the content browser, and if you see nothing show up, just make sure engine content and plugin content is enabled. And you just search up the Optitrack and you see these skeletons. Just click on one of them and press Ctrl B. This is gonna take you to the folder. And there's like a bunch of assets in these folders. There's like the Cinepuck mesh. The ones we are interested in is the animation folder, and there's a bunch of skeletons there. The one that is suitable for us is going to be the FBX avatars. The reason we are using the skeleton in that FBX folder is because we chose the FBX bone naming in Motive. And the reason behind that is because I am using Motive 2.3. If I was on Motive 3X or higher, there you would see the option of choosing Unreal Engine in the bone naming list. Now, in terms of retargeting and getting a good result, it doesn't really matter which naming convention you use to get this data transferred. If you're on Motive 3 or higher, you can use the Unreal Engine bone naming convention and try to get one of the skeletons in the other folders working. The FBX convention we are using is universal. It doesn't matter which Motive version or which Unreal version you're on. The main question is the skeleton hierarchy and the skeleton naming. And those things will line up between Motive and Unreal, and the skeleton should work. Just like the skeletal mesh I gave you, you can see there's skeletal meshes in this folder. There's one male and one female, and we can drag it into the scene. One important distinction to make between my skeleton and the one Optitrack gave is the one from Optitrack is in a T-pose. When you're retargeting to a Metahuman and you want a good result, you need a source skeleton that is in an A pose. But if you know your target is gonna be in a T-pose, you should use a source skeleton that's also in a T-pose. Now what I'm going to do is create another animation blueprint, and this time I'm going to choose the skeleton that's named y_opti_fbx. I'm gonna hit create animation blueprint _opti_fbx. And same as the other skeleton, I'm gonna look for a live link pose, and in the subject name, I'm gonna select it from a drop-down list. One thing to keep in mind, even though this is a field you can type into, always select it from the drop-down list, because even though it might work for this session of Unreal, I ran into an issue where after I restarted, it stopped moving. So just select it from the list. And just like the other skeleton, I'm scrolling down, selecting my anim class, ABP_OptiFBX, and we can see it snapped to the pose. So we're adding that live link skeletal animation, and you can see that it's moving, but it's broken. To fix it, we're going to turn back on that anime Y forward with disabled. And this leads into this one thing I want you to pay attention to. You see on this asset right here, this skeleton is facing towards the right. And when I double click and open it, and you can see that it's facing towards the right. But these assets, it's looking towards us and a little to the left. And when I double click and open it, it's facing straight towards us. And if you pay attention to that little gizmo on the bottom left, we can see those are the axes. In terms of retargeting, there's a big difference between the skeletons that are X forward and that are Y forward. All you need to know is the default assets and the default way the animation data is supposed to come in is going to be with Y forward. However, for the best results to map onto a Metahuman, you need a skeleton that has two things. One is the perfect A pose. Second is going to be that it has to face the X-axis. This is the key to getting good results. So just for you to keep in mind, if you have a skeleton that you see the bone orientations are broken, you need to pay attention to these three places. Number one is going to be that up axis setting in Motive. Number two is going to be the animate Y forward setting in Live Link. And number three is going to be your import setting when you're importing your skeleton. All right, on that note, we have successfully gotten a T-pose and an A-pose skeleton to take in live data from Motive. Now let's move on to chapter 3. We want to get a Metahuman to move with this skeletal animation, right? First thing we need to do is enable the Metahuman plugins. I'm just gonna go to plugins and search for Metahuman. I'm gonna enable Metahuman Creator, Metahuman Live Link, Metahuman Animator, and Metahuman Cortex. Alright, I'm gonna create a Metahuman character. I'm just gonna call it test. And I'm just gonna pick a preset. I'm gonna create a full rig and download my source textures. I'm gonna hit assemble. Alright, let's restart. Okay, I redid my connection and I just dragged my Metahuman into my scene. Now we're gonna look for the IK asset and the retarget asset. I'm just gonna go to where my Unreal Engine file is. I just saved it directly under C. So I'm just gonna go to that folder I created, to motion. And I'm just gonna paste them here. You should immediately see them appear. If you don't, just restart Unreal and you should see them appear. There are two files. We have our IK rig and our retargeter. You might be wondering, why didn't we take the animation data, like how we put it on the skeleton, like how we put it on that the other blue guy? Why can't we just put it on the Metahuman as well? At the core of it, what it comes down to is the one you downloaded from Google Drive and the one that you got from the plugin are built to receive that Optitrack data. Not only that, we had to use the skeleton that was specifically in the FBX folder because that had the exact correct bone naming convention. And just like the Metahuman, whatever custom character you're going to use, Quinn or Manny, they're also not created to receive that Optitrack data. Bone namings are different. That retargeting asset is the bridge between that skeleton that can receive the data from Motive and the target we care about. In our case, the Metahuman. That retargeter, as you can see, it's called an IK retargeter. So we have to create an IK rig of our skeletal mesh. Luckily for you, since you're using my files, I already created an IK rig for you. All you have to do is double click and dock this window to the side. And for that skeletal mesh, just drag in that OptiScale skeleton. And you will already see that IK goals are already lined up and they are behaving as we expected to behave. And if you also messed with your rig just like I did, you can just click and revert the transforms by clicking this button. Alright, we can go ahead and save this. Now, at any one point, if you have Live Link running in the background, you can go to this tab on the right. It's called Preview Settings. And you can change the controller to Live Link Preview Controller. As soon as you switch your subject to your live subject, you will see your skeleton previewing that same animation. Now double click on your retargeter and we need to plug in first our source IKRig asset, which is the one we just set up, IKR_OptiScale. And again, just like before, we can go to Preview Settings, choose Live Link Preview Controller and our subject, and we can see it moving here as well. Okay, we can set it back to default to stop it and go back to our details. Now for my target, I'm going to select IK_Metahuman_IKRig. If you don't see this option, try enabling engine content. However, there is this one case where even after turning on engine and plugin content, you still cannot see the Metahuman IKRig. The workaround for that is going to be downloading a Metahuman from Quixel Bridge. You don't need to follow this step. What I'm going to do is save and close this, go to Quixel Bridge, and just download any Metahuman. I'm going to hit import and migrate. I'm going to close. And if you go back to our retargeter once more, you will see it show up right here. So how does this IK rig transfer over animations that were made for one character onto another? Well, at the core of it, all it's really doing is looking at a bone's transforms from the source and copying it over to the target. For some bones, it's going to just do that. It's going to take its transforms and copy it over. For others, it's going to match the motion of the bone chains. You might be wondering, what the hell are bone chains? Well, generally in animation retargeting, you have to do something called characterizing your rig. It's the process of defining the skeleton structure into these standard bone chains so the software can transform the motions over. For Unreal, we have to put them into these bone chains. If we go to our target and we see from spine 1 all the way to spine 5 is all assigned to this retarget chain called spine. Then we see neck 1, neck 2, and the head is assigned to the chain head. The true power of that is if we go to our source, you're going to see there's only spine and spine 1. So it's able to transform over motions with chains of different length. And this massively simplifies the process. So what you need to do is characterize your rig by taking the bones and assigning them to these retarget chains. The reason I had you download my UI assets from Google Drive is because I already did this for the skeleton, so you don't have to go through this process. But I'm still going to cover all the steps on how I made it. So the way we get a good retarget out of everything I explained so far is we apply them in an operator stack. On the top left, as you can see in the list, the first one is the pelvis motion. The source is going to be called hips, and on the target, it's going to be called pelvis, and you see it snap into that position. Next is going to be the retargeting of the chains we talked about. And as you can see, just like how we characterized it, root is assigned to root, spine is assigned to spine, and so on and so forth. And that is how Unreal Engine knows which source bone transforms should be applied to which target transforms. Now, there are usually mismatches in this list, so I would advise you to go through it and make sure that you're not seeing something strange. The most common mismatches I came across was the neck is sometimes assigned to the root, and for some reason the clavicle was assigned to the spine sometimes. But apart from that, Unreal Engine usually catches the namings automatically pretty well. Next thing you need to look out for is there will be cases that either the source or the target has bones that the other skeleton just doesn't. For the Metahuman, it will have metacarpal and twist joints, but the Optitrack skeleton does not have those bones. So you can just search up metacarpal and make sure all of them are set to none. Then you can search up twist and make sure all those bones are also set to none as well. For the IKEA rig, I'm just using speed planting, just make sure the names match up. And that pretty much covers everything you need to know when it comes to the basics about this retargeter. And just like before, we can go to the top right to the preview settings, select Live Link Preview Controller and our subject, and you should see your character walking around. If it's not moving, just hit that button that says Editing Retarget Pose, and it should start moving then. I'm going to offset my character a little bit so you can very easily see what the original data is and what the retarget looks like. Okay, I'm gonna save and close this. Okay, I'm gonna go to the folder where I have the rest of my animation blueprints. I'm going to right click and create animation blueprint. I'm going to choose that Metahuman base skeleton. It should be called Metahuman base scale. I'm gonna click once and hit create. I'm going to call it ABP underscore retarg. I'm going to open it up and I'm going to search for a node named retarget pose from mesh. And I'm going to link it to the result. I'm going to select the retargeting asset we just configured, just called retarg underscore optiscale. And I'm going to compile and save. For future reference, I would pay attention to this retarget from, and just for you to know, it is going to use the default value of taking the data from whatever its parent is. This is going to make more sense in a minute. Oh, one more thing. You might run into a case where you just open the animation blueprint and you're looking at something like this. You're searching up nodes, but nothing is coming up. You just need to keep in mind that you're looking at the event graph. And to switch to the anim graph, you just need to double click it. Alright, I'm gonna make a duplicate of my Metahuman, and I like to add the name of my motive subject at the end. I'm gonna hit enter and move it to the folder with the rest of my assets. And we have everything we need to assemble that final Metahuman. I also like to add the name of my subject at the end of my live link and my retarg animation blueprints as well, but keeping them as is also fine. What I'm going to do is double click on the Metahuman blueprint. I'm gonna go to the viewport tab so we can see what we're doing. Now I want you to click on this LOD sync on the left. You see the forced LOD is set to -1. This means the blueprint is free to switch between the LODs depending on the camera distance. LOD 0 is going to be the highest resolution and LOD 8 is going to be the lowest. I would advise you to force it to a number 3 or lower. The reason for that is if you are filming this Metahuman and your LOD drops below 5, you will actually run into issues when you're playing back that data, where your skeleton will be breaking. So I would advise you to have it 3 or closer to 0 while you're recording and force LOD to 0 when you are rendering. Alright, I'm gonna click once on the root and add a skeletal mesh. I'm just gonna name it Optiscale. And I'm going to take the body and drag it inside it. This is going to make it its child. This is what I meant, that it's going to inherit the data from the parent. Under skeletal mesh asset, I'm just gonna search Optiscale. This is the asset we just imported, and you're gonna see it show up. Now we're going to assign it that animation blueprint we created, the live link one. It should be called ABP_live link. As you can see, it's moving. Now I'm gonna click on my body, and for its animation blueprint, I'm gonna choose ABP_retarg. And as you can see, our character is moving. Now I'm gonna add that live link skeletal animation controller, just like we did with the other assets. And I'm just gonna turn off the visibility on this Optiscale skeleton. Compile and save. And we can drag in this blueprint into the scene. So throughout this tutorial, we learned how to stream from Motive to Unreal Engine 5. We learned how to get a default skeleton moving. Then we learned how to get a Metahuman moving with this animation as well. From here on out, I would advise you to look through Unreal Engine 5 and Motive documentation. That is your best bet if you want to learn more about motion capture in Unreal. And one more note is going to be Epic Games is moving more in the direction of you integrating Live Link Hub and the mocap manager more, and you will definitely start hearing about it more. Alright, chapter 4, let's do the face. Plugins wise, we already enabled everything, so it's gonna be Live Link Control Rig, Metahuman Animator, and Metahuman Live Link. You're gonna go to add source, Live Link face, click on it once, and enter the IP of your phone. Just make sure they're connected to the same Wi-Fi. And I'm gonna hit connect. And you should see it show up here. I'm gonna turn off these two ticks and make it neutral face and capture neutrals. Okay, this is everything on the Live Link side. Now, just like before, we want to make an animation blueprint, right? And we have to select the proper skeleton. If I go to like the Metahuman files and find the source skeleton, you can see it's under this common files. And you can see it's called face archetype skeleton. What I'm gonna do is go back to my motion folder, right click animation blueprint, and I'm gonna search up face. And I'm just gonna click on the first one. I'm gonna hit create, and I'm gonna call it ABP_live link face. Hit enter. Just like before, I'm gonna add a node called live link pose. My subject is gonna be iPhone, and drag it to the result. Compile and save. And you can already see it moving in the preview. Alright, I'm going back to my blueprint. Face and anim class. I'm gonna choose ABP_live link face. Compile and save. And if I get close to the character, you can see it's moving. Alright. And the stream is coming in from Motive, and and the iPhone simultaneously. This is why we turned off the head transforms in the Live Link tab. And that is it. Now, I'm going to show you the basic workflow of using the take recorder to start capturing. First thing is going to be making sure your Live Link connection is set up correctly. Loopback, unicast, and animate Y forward is off. Then I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to search Take Recorder. I'm going to click, and it's going to open up the sequencer as well, so I'm going to drag it to the bottom. Then I'm going to select my Metahuman, add source from actor. You can either search up the name of the Metahuman or just click that add button on the top. And in here, the record type should be possessable. You might be wondering what's the difference between project default, possessable, and spawnable. Project default is going to be spawnable, so those are basically the same. The difference between possessable and spawnable is if your actor is spawnable, every time you play back the recording in the sequencer, it's going to spawn an actor in the scene. You're going to see it, appear in the outliner. If you set it to possessable, it's going to, possess the existing actor in the scene. The way you want to record is you want to just have your actor in the scene, and it should do the movement, and take recorder should capture it, and when you're playing back, it should just take control of the skeleton. If you have an actor that is spawnable, every time you play the animation, you're gonna see duplicate of the Metahuman appear right on top of what you just recorded, and it gets messy really quickly. That is why I'm recommending you to use possessable. Alright, you are probably wondering why did I choose to add an actor source instead of a live link source in the take recorder? Well, the difference is when you have an actor as a source, after you're done recording, you will get a sequence with your Metahuman blueprint, your OptiScale, that animation, and everything. When you have a live link source, you are going to capture that raw tracking data. Even though that might sound better to capture, in reality, every time you play it back, you actually see it pop up as a source under Live Link, under Optitrack. And Unreal Engine, again, crashes a lot when that happens. So I would advise you to stick to capturing the Metahuman blueprint directly by choosing the actor. The rest of the settings in the take recorder, you can just leave them as it is. All I'm going to do is change my take number to 0100. And if you want to change the directory to where they're saved, you can just click that gear icon and you can change the save directory. I'm just going to leave everything default, and I'm just going to hit the record button. All right, I can now cut, and you can hit that little folder icon to see where it was saved. And this is the sequence I was talking about. All right, I'm just going to create a level sequence with like a basic camera. Just going to call it test. And I'm just gonna drag it into our sequence. I'm just gonna drag in a basic camera. All right. Now, right now, our playhead is not hovering over the sequence. And the second we are playing the sequence, the live link data stops, and we just see what we recorded. As you can see, we stopped playing the level sequence, and our Metahuman also stopped moving. And as you can see, the sequence is possessing the Metahuman character. And if the playhead is not over that little bit of recording, our character is free to move with the live link stream. Now I'm going to hit record again and cut. And again, we can drag in the second sequence there. And let's imagine that we are editing these clips together. I'm just going to trim them end to end. You can press Ctrl and period to trim it at the end. And as you can see, it switches from the first motion to the second motion. And if you unlock it and go into the subsequence, this is exactly what I was talking about. It recorded everything that we are going to need to bake it down to the Metahuman control rig, and we can do whatever we want with this information now. And if you go into the folders, you can see the actual animation sequences that were recorded. All right, and that is the end of the video. I hope you had fun watching it. I hope you learned a lot. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. If there's a specific topic or something you're having trouble with that you want me to cover, I would love to hear that as well.